So, how many of you were at convention and heard Michael Clouse speak? And how many are really excited to hear him today? Now, at convention, I told Michael to take it a little bit easy. You know, we have a lot of product users, might be a little offended if we get too much into the business side of things. So he was a little bit tame. So for this event, I told him we want Michael raw. Let it loose. We're really excited about that. So for those of you who do not know who Michael Clouse is, he has authored over 50 published articles, along with several books, videos, and CD training programs on the subject of network marketing. He's certified as a network marketing professional by the University of Illinois at Chicago. Michael is recognized as one of the top 20 network marketing trainers in the world today, and we have him here in Utah with us. With a background that includes over 25 years experience in direct sales, MLM system development, and team psychology, Michael is a sought-after business consultant, personal coach, and a dynamic keynote speaker. His weekly newsletter, Nextera e-News, is read by tens of thousands of network marketer professionals around the world. So please put your hands together and give a very warm welcome to Michael Clouse.
Save some for the end. Out of curiosity, I saw the hands of the people that were there, but how many of you, this is your first experience? How many, by show of hands, have never seen me present in person before? First time. Wow, okay, why is it just the people in the back? Anyway, all right. I appreciate what Emily said, thank you. Do I need a lapel? I don't think so. I'm okay. Can you hear me? Perfect, all right. I really say this as respectfully as I can. It's one thing to be invited out, and I had the privilege of being invited out to your last conference. It's another thing entirely to be invited back. So I don't take this lightly. I appreciate you extending the invitation and also the warm welcome. What an extraordinary group of people you have here. I've had the privilege of being in this industry for a long time, over 25 years. I've worked with a lot of companies. Most of those companies I'll spend maybe 1 or 2 visits with, and then you pretty much recognize you need to go another direction because they're moving in a direction you really don't want to participate in. So when I got the call here, I was excited. I really was. I thought I was going to have a scheduling conflict because I already had an event in Los Angeles on Saturday, but I'm glad you decided to meet here on Thursday, so it worked out okay. But we are going to get into kind of some of the meat and potatoes, so to speak, of building this business. I want you, though, to grab something to take notes with, because what I'm going to share with you today, I can promise you, will, without question, allow you to not only transform your business, but this key leadership conference, and I've been made aware of what you need to do to qualify to be here. Now, I can promise you, if your company does this again in 1 year, they won't be able to come back to this beautiful facility because it won't hold you. There will be at least 500 people or more at the next conference. If you don't have a 100% increase between now and 1 year from today, then the only thing I can suggest is you either didn't take notes or you didn't apply them. Because this material here is so powerful, it will indeed allow you to experience at least 100% growth within your particular organization. And that's overall, which means for some a little less, for others, significantly more. I had the pleasure of stepping in and working with a company that was doing about $112 million in sales many years ago. They've been in business for about 20 years. They had great products. They had a very nice management team. They had some good leadership. What they were lacking was the formula I'm going to leave with you today, the reason that we're all assembled, at least for my portion of this afternoon. Once they took that little formula and began embracing it, the very first year they went from $112 million to $234 million in sales. The following year they broke $500 million. The preceding year, the year after, $969 million in sales. I've watched companies go from 0 to 500 million implementing this from day one. This strategy is unique to success within our profession. Every company, regardless of product, good or service, regardless of country, culture, or compensation, that embrace these strategies and follow them as laws and rules and principles grow, and they grow exponentially. And I can tell all of you today here as leaders that as you're working with your team, if you use this as a diagnostic procedure, you can find the issues and challenges you're having with an individual or with a team. All you've got to do is have a call with them and say, let's start at the top and start working our way through. And I'll promise you, you probably won't get to point number 2 or 3 or 4 before you recognize where the issue is. Just like a good physician during cold and flu season probably doesn't need to ask a lot of questions. Sometimes a good physician during cold and flu season could just take one look at you, knowing that you've already decided you needed a little help, and there you are sitting in his or her office. But with a couple of queries and maybe a little bit of testing, they can pinpoint, here's what you've got. Now here's what you need to do to get over it. And that's exactly where we are today. Now, if your business is growing, implement these and watch it go into extraordinary momentum. If your business is a little bit flat, probably most of these or some of these or maybe even one of these you've yet to implement. And like any good formula, like any good recipe, take this apart and you will never get the desired result. And unfortunately, that's what too many people do today. Somebody gives them, as my wife has passed along far too many times for me to remember or count, her famous German chocolate cake recipe. Any of you here ever had an extraordinary piece of German chocolate cake? I mean, you get a piece of that, I mean, it's just phenomenal. But now, if you came to our home and she happened to prepare that as you were a nice invited guest in our home, she wanted to do something special, and we had that for the evening meal, and well, not for the meal, but of course for dessert after the meal. I'd be all up for having that for the evening meal, but probably you'd think that a bit strange. But if she brought that out and you actually said, wow, this has got to be one of the most extraordinary things I've ever had, would I be able to trouble you for the recipe? She'd scurry off to her office where she's recorded it long ago, print out a copy, and bring it to you. Now, if you started looking at that recipe, what do you think you might already predictably find in a German chocolate cake recipe? Chocolate, that would be probably a foregone conclusion. What else do you think, any of you that bake or cook? Eggs, flour, a German? Oh. Maybe a little salt, coconut, gotta have the coconut. But along with the ingredients, and here's the first thing for your notes, you would find the ingredients, yes, first thing for your notes, the ingredients. But you'd also find something there which sometimes we overlook. We don't really think about this because cooking for most of us has become second nature. But you would find the process. You would find the process. It would say, do this first, do this second, do this third. The oven is either preheated, the rack goes in the middle, you grease or pre-prepare the cooking sheets. You know, it needs to rise for this period of time, needs to be whipped and we find the process. And then the last component, which of course is unmistakably there, but sometimes not expressly written, is the concept of time. I mean, how long will it take in the kitchen? How long will it take perhaps even before the kitchen to go and acquire the ingredients? How long will it take for you to put all this together? How long will it take for it to rise? How long will it take for it to bake? How long for it to cool? How long for it to take to frost? How long for you to sit down and enjoy it together as a family? I mean, all of that is kind of there, but it's not really stated, is it? And yet within every one of these formulas or recipes, and this is critical for your notes, we find a predictable flaw in every recipe, in every formula. I promise you, regardless of what you're going to hear from me today, if you write this down, take good copious notes, walk out these doors, begin to implement it, and you miss a couple of these things, the predictable flaws will be able to show up and you're not going to get the success that you're looking for. And that would be tragic. Let me give you one of the greatest predictable flaws when it comes to cooking. It's the incredible edible egg. It's the most predictable flaw in cooking. How many things can you think of off the top of your head that require an egg? How many? Bread? Cookie? Eggs? I mean, if you're going to have eggs, probably going to need eggs, pancakes, eggs, waffles, eggs. You get the idea, right? Good pasta. Show me a recipe. I've been looking. I can't find one. Our son-in-law has a culinary degree. Fancied himself as a very good chef. He can make an extraordinary meal. I asked him. He couldn't find one. How many of you cook and feel you're pretty competent in the kitchen or around the kitchen? Go home, see if you can find one. Find a recipe anywhere that calls for an egg, where there's a little asterisk next to the egg, a little footnote at the bottom of the recipe that says, remove from shell first. Show me one, anywhere. I have never seen a recipe that says, take the egg out of the shell. Why? 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 Because we're supposed to know. But here comes an interesting question. What if you didn't know? What if I gave you the recipe and it said, add in 2 eggs, and you went, okay, there's 2 eggs. Mix in with the flour, okay. And you put this together, and of course, you're serving a little bit later to your family. You're crunch, crunch, crunch. It's not like I remember. Now you're around people not any brighter than you at this moment in time. They say, I think that's fiber. And you say, fiber is good, fiber is good. Okay, okay, I didn't recognize this. This is good and good for you too, incredible. Someone else says, no, 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 it's not the fiber. It's the calcium. They probably had you whip that up so you could eat the eggshells. Calcium, gotta have it, calcium. Why don't we tell people to take it out of the egg or take it out of the shell? Why? So here comes the challenge. Now you come to one of these events, and now all of a sudden someone like myself or some of the preceding speakers, maybe some that will come after me, they give you something. You think, wow, that's good, that's good, that's good. But because of where you already are, you hear it differently. You see it differently. And so you go back home and you start sharing this information with people that don't have your level of expertise or knowledge. And we forget to tell them to take the egg out of the shell because it just seems so obvious to all of us. And they go out and they try it and they what? They fail. Ever sponsored anybody into the business personally that you thought potentially could really have some extraordinary opportunities to do some great things here? And within about the first 90 days, they were just gone. Has this ever happened to anyone other than me? One of you? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 5, 9 of you, maybe 11. I think this has to be one of the greatest opportunities I've ever seen. But my sister Beth, on the other hand, she has no interest. She can't see it. She wants to go a different direction. Well, the end result was Terry came on board and ended up building one of the largest businesses or largest portions of the business that I had at that time. She brought over 1,100 people into the business in the first year. Terry was really excited. Now, you would think that Beth, wanting to sit on the sidelines because Beth was in absolute disagreement and wanted nothing to do with it, you'd think that after the first year of 1,100 people coming on board, Beth might have changed her mind. But you would be mistaken. Beth never changed her mind. Beth never really took any action, regardless of how successful Terry became. And see, that really puzzled me, as it might puzzle some of you, because before then, when I had made presentations to people, they were always disconnected. Oh, we'd had the home event, but you know, the people I had invited or the people that were in front of me, they were disconnected people. You know, I'd never actually presented to 2 completely different families, you know, across the table from myself at a hotel like that before, only to have one say yes and have one say no, both of whom were looking. And so from that moment forward, I started thinking to myself, what could I have said differently? What could I have done? What did I leave out? What else should I have put in? Any of you ever given a presentation, walked away when they didn't say yes, and you couldn't figure out for the life of you what you had done wrong? And that sometimes is how we start thinking about it, isn't it? What did I do wrong? Well, from that point in time, ladies and gentlemen, I recognized very clearly, I don't know that I did anything wrong. I mean, how do you get one of them involved who ends up becoming a superstar within our profession, the other choosing to avoid it when you told the same story to the same 2 people at the same moment in time, the exact same way? Sometimes there's not a lot we can do. But having said that, guess what else we've learned? Sometimes it is us. Sometimes what we're doing isn't working. Sometimes what we're actually out there trying to share is creating the environment that we currently see within our business. And sometimes, with just a slight alteration, just a slight little tweak, we can start going from a challenging business to one that's growing and prospering. And that's what I want to talk with you about today, are these points that can make all the difference in the world. But I want to be very clear about this. Mastering these 7 points And the sub-points that I will give you will take some time. Just like making that cake will take some time. There'll be some ingredients, there'll be that process, but there's always that component of time. But let's be very clear. I think that most of the time, we're not comparing favorably what our options are to what other people are considering to be reality today. Let me see if I can be more clear. How many of you, by show of hands, have gone to university and graduated where you have a degree in something, anything, doesn't matter? How many of you? Okay, fair percentage. How many of you that got that degree took 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years or longer? Any of you? Most of you? Shout out some of the amounts if you are comfortable with what it cost you to acquire that degree. Approximately. How much? 28,000. 40,000. So, feels like we're in an auction. Do I hear 80? We got any doctors in the room? I'm sure it's 80 or more. 150? 150,000. How long did it take? 8 years and $150,000. Now, think about your chosen profession, what you went to university for. Think about what that degree was designed to do, the number of years it would take to acquire, the investment financially that would be asked of you, and then what would be the starting salary for someone in that line of work? What's the starting salary? And then start asking yourself this question. What happens when people get involved in a good network marketing business and invest 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years? A little bit of time, effort, and energy. What becomes the income for those people at the top of our profession? And I will tell you, the vast majority of the people that I have the pleasure of hanging around today are over 7 figures per year. That's the potential. If you're not making at least $200,000, $300,000 a month, and you've been doing this more than 6, 7, 8, 9 years, you probably got to a point where you just became comfortable. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, a lot of times when people get to $40,000 or $50,000 a month, they've got enough money for themselves and for their family. They just start slacking off, enjoying the kids, enjoying travel, enjoying each other. They're okay with that. Others, they just continue to apply the same processes and they grow. Now, look at the people, by contrast, who get involved in our profession. How much time are most of those individuals at the onset willing to invest, time-wise? What are they looking to earn, income-wise? And if you start querying these people, you'll find we've got a big disconnect within our profession. We've got people that are trying to earn at least $5,000 to $10,000 a month that aren't investing in themselves professionally. We've got people that spend more money on their mobile phone or their cell phone bill every month than they're investing into their mind to grow their business. We've got more people that will invest into their television, cable, or satellite bill than they will invest into supplies, tools, whatever it's necessary to grow or build their enterprise. We've got some people that would like to have the dream, but I promise you, if they were pulled over by the doTERRA police, there wouldn't be enough evidence on them to convict. I mean, they couldn't find a brochure, couldn't find anything. It wouldn't be anything. I thought you were involved in the business. I am. We can't find any information on your car. Nothing on your home. You don't even smell good. I mean, what's going on? Well, you know, if I could just get a few of my friends to buy some of this stuff, I'd be okay. Really? That's your strategy? Start with them first? Come on. Let's talk about the 7 strategies. Let's talk about what we're doing as leaders. But remember, when it's all said and done, there is a flaw in this, and the flaw is that it's not possible to take just these 7 points and go out and create that 7-figure income. You've got to know certain things that are between the lines, like take the egg out of the shell. And some of that you're going to learn through trial and error. Some you're going to learn by the speaker who comes after me or the one that came before me. Some you're going to learn on that next conference call or webinar. Some you'll learn at the next corporate event. Some you're going to learn just by going out there and doing it repetitively. Some are going to come from a book or from a CD program. All of it collectively, though, will amass into the education that you have that will allow you, hopefully, at some point in time to have the freedom, the lifestyle that you truly desire. Because at least from my vantage point, the reason that most people choose to be involved in the business side, oh, sure, they're in love with the product. But the reason most people choose to be involved in the business side is they want the benefits of the business. And one of the greatest benefits of the business that I've ever seen is time and financial freedom. Most of us in life can aspire to one or the other. You can go out and become very wealthy doing virtually anything in this country, but what do most people who are very wealthy give up in the process? They give up their time. They give up their families. If you ever get a chance to see the movie regarding Henry, extraordinary film about a very successful attorney who was simply never home. Now, by contrast, the people who don't go after the money, but they go after the time, time's easy to acquire here in the United States, is it not? Time's easy to acquire in virtually any part of the world. You just quit. Now you have all the time in the world. Unless you're under contract, just quit. But what's the problem with that? You don't have any money, which is sometimes a problem in this country. You need a little of that. So it's always the balancing scale. You know, how much time, how much money, how much time, how much money. And in our profession, when you really begin to understand it, it's the only thing I've ever seen with my own two eyes and experienced myself personally, watched others around me experience the same. Whereas the income went up, if done properly, so did the free time. Now, let me say that again. If done properly, as the income grows, so does the free time. If done improperly, as the income grows, so does the commitment of time. I mean, you can literally box yourself in where by the time you've got a $100,000 a year income, your email never stops coming, your phone never stops ringing. I mean, you're working basically about 24/7 if you'd answer every call and return every email. I've watched people do that. I've also watched people that they've grown their income $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a month, and what they've been able to accomplish from a lifestyle standpoint is simply extraordinary. So the beautiful part is you get to choose. You get to choose. You get to choose if you're looking for a prospect or a project. I can fix them. You give me enough time, I'll clean them up, I'll dress them up, I'll smarten them up, I'm going to work with them. You watch. And if you're looking for that, that's okay. Some people are, you know, they're looking to go out and find the projects and work with those individuals. But enough about the background. Let's get right into the material, shall we? Here's the 7 points. Little strategy, little formula. Now we're going to do a couple little subsets within these points too, so you kind of get the overall outline. Get yourself something clean, nice clean sheet of paper to write with so you can walk out of here, type this up, keep these notes with you. I promise you they'll serve you well over time. But some of this, let me be up front, some of this is going to sound a lot like my wife's German chocolate cake, thank you, recipe. I'm going to say egg, you're going to go, really? The guy flew all the way down here from Seattle to say egg? I already knew that one. Okay. But it goes along with these others. Number 1, we've got to become a product of the product. Number 1, we've got to be on, you call it auto order, automatic order, recurring order, the rewards program, loyalty rewards program. You got to be. Seriously. But not only you, the people on your team. You've got to develop a story, and you've got to create a habit. And let me tell you something, and the most important reason I can share with you that people need to be on that automatic, reoccurring, self-generating, or whatever it is within your company, which will alter from time to time, you need to be on that every single month, is because we need someone to help you with the habit. First time I came down here, I got this beautiful gift. It was this wonderful box, had all these incredible oils in them. Took them home, shared them with my family. Got a wonderful little CD, explained how to use them. Got some great material. We were excited. We started passing them around, sharing them with everybody. Everybody was talking about them. Every night before I went to bed, I was rubbing some on my feet, putting it in between my toes, putting it in my water, doing all kinds of stuff with it. And then one day, I turned the bottle upside down. Nothing came out. Guess what I did? I went, I'm out of this. I need to remember to make a phone call. Guess how long it's been since I've been thinking about making that phone call? It's a habit. So now I'm walking back in here and I'm thinking, I was supposed to get one of those the last time. I was supposed to get, they've got I didn't know they had this. Oh, look at this. Oh, look at this. Oh, look at this. I'm no different than you are. I'm no different than the next person that you'll sponsor. Now, if I had gotten on that the day I was here, it would have been coming in, coming in, coming in, coming in. What a story. Look at the story. Talking about this stuff. You see, that's what happens to so many people, but oftentimes we forget about it. We think, well, they ordered, they didn't order anymore. They must not like it. It must be too expensive. They must have gone back to something else. I promise you, you've got products out there in the marketplace that are so different and so extraordinary, but how many people that you're introducing this to were already in the habit of using your kinds and types of products every day before you entered into their life? Probably not that many. I certainly had never used an oil for anything except for when I went for a massage. And it was someone else's, and I didn't think that much about it. You've got to be on the products. You've got to be a product of the product. You've got to be on reoccurring order. You've got to start setting it up. You've got to start sharing those experiences. Here's the phrase that pays. They'll buy your music more than they'll buy your facts. Your music, how you speak, is more important, that passion that comes from within you, than the words that are actually coming out of your mouth. People get excited about all kinds of things. People get passionate to the extent that they can create or catch us up within their passion or their excitement. That only happens with a good story. So for all of you, of course, I know I'm preaching to the choir, so to speak, because I can't imagine a single person in this room, not with what you need to do to be here. I don't think you need to be reminded of this. So I'm not telling you, go get on this program for yourself. You're already on this program. What I'm saying is, when you're talking with new people, you're bringing them into the business, regardless of who they are. They need to understand the importance of this is number one. You've got to get these coming into their home time after time after time until they become so, if I can use the word, addicted to these, that they would give up something else as opposed to giving this up. If money becomes a habit or a problem within their family, they're going to put an antenna on their roof. You can get television for free. Go to the internet and watch a show if you need to. But these? Come on. But that only happens when they become such a part of the fabric of who you are. You've got to make sure that that's happening for you. Agreed? So here's your assignment. Go back through the people you've personally sponsored after this event is over. I'm not necessarily saying today or tomorrow, but after you're complete, you get back Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Don't let it go too long. Start looking at the people you have personally brought into the business and look for those individuals that are not on this plan. And see how many of those individuals that you can, through what you've learned, new product, new offering, new catalog, the way the points work, all of these different things that you now have to share with them, see if you can't start yourself and find out what's actually working. And then when you find out what's working to get the people you brought on board personally, when you find out what's successful for you, start teaching some of the other leaders in your business. Hey, here's the language I'm finding is working. You know, here's the products I'm finding people are accepting. You know, here's what I'm going through. I mean, weight loss is massively exciting and impressive and important within our industry. So is that the one that gets people excited? Is it the new scents that get people excited? Is it the new oil that gets, what is it? You will find that out by going out and experimenting with those people that you've already personally brought into the company. Fair enough? Number two. Once we've got number one down, it just becomes the fabric of who we are. Number two is we've got to start realizing how people move forward. Number two is how we set our goals. I heard goals mentioned by 2-3 speakers that came before me. But how we set goals sometimes gets lost in translation. We were over in Norway, my wife and I, and we were taken up to the old ski lift, if you remember where the Olympics took place there. And there's a little restaurant at the top. I wish I could tell you. It's like something like that. But it's a loose translation. But it's a little place you go up the ski lift. And if you get up there, they have this bowl of porridge that you can get, for lack of a better word. They don't call it that. It's like, but you ask for this, and you put cinnamon and butter and all this kind of stuff on it in a really heavy cream. Is that what it is? What is it? There you go. See? Risgrynsgrud. Okay. Fantastic. It's fantastic. And so my wife and I, we can't stop talking about this. We really like this stuff. It's great. Well, the hosts that had brought us over, they thought, well, this would be really good. They like this stuff. We're looking for a little gift they can take back to the States. You can't bring any liquids hardly anymore. You know, this is nice. It's like a powder. You mix it up when you get back home. So they got us some of this stuff, and they gave a nice little gift box. We were excited until we got back home. And then we flip it over on the back side and realize the instructions are all in Norwegian. The temperatures are in like centigrade or Celsius. I don't know what they are. You know, the only thing we recognize is how long you're supposed to cook it. Not helpful. So we had to call them, they had to translate, right? So those directions worked beautifully for people who could understand, not so much for us. So everything you've heard about goal setting is fine. All this works It's just what works and what we teach other people rarely are the same thing. Rarely are the same thing. I mean, for example, there's a phraseology that you'll learn going through this business, I promise you, that I refer to as age-appropriate conversation. Now, we understand that if we're parents. We have any parents in the room? I know. Whatever. I forgot where I was for a second. Of course. I was talking to one of the ladies, and she said, yeah, I had to have someone watch the kids. How many kids do you have? We have 5. Wow, 4 boys and a girl. You need another child. I know. I'm telling my husband, need another child. Sorry. But you really do need another girl. I mean, 4 boys and 1 girl, that's just wrong. Keep going until you get another girl. 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, 5 girls and a boy? And a boy? Well, then it wasn't you. Somewhere in here, there's someone with 4 boys and a girl that I talked to. We had a conversation. Anyway, reminds me of my family. Our son-in-law, I told you, married to our daughter. 8 sisters, 1 boy. Because they had a girl, they wanted a boy. They had another one, had a girl, 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 had a... Number 8 is a boy. So they thought, we'll give him a brother. Number 9 was a girl. So he's the only boy. Anyway, I digress. Where was I? Oh, yes. Okay. So here's the thing. So what works is different than what duplicates or what we teach to other people. It's not necessarily the same. Age-appropriate conversation says when your 4 or 5-year-old comes to you and says, where do babies come from? You probably don't get the encyclopedia, start drawing charts and graphs, get a video that would be, no, it's mommy's tummy or it's the Cabbage Patch or whatever it is that you tell them at that age. But, when they're 16, and they come to you and say, where do babies come from? If you start telling them about the Cabbage Patch, you're going to be a grandparent faster than you want to be. You have to kind of know what's appropriate for them at the beginning. Now, here's the snag within our profession. We are not like looking at kids. When you look at someone who's 4, 5, 6 years of age, you kind of know what grade they're in. Kindergarten, 1st grade. You look at someone who's kind of like, looks like they're middle school, you can kind of figure out, I bet they're about this grade, 6, 7, 8, 9, somewhere in there. You can tell the people in high school. But what if humans, just think about this, just humor me for a second. What if humans were like horses and we were full grown at 2? But we still put them in kindergarten when they were 5. And we worked them through the curriculum. You couldn't tell by looking at them what grade they were in. That's more of an appropriate analogy for the people we bring into our profession. Because you're talking to somebody who maybe is in their mid-40s, and we talk to them like they're in their mid-40s. Truth is, I saw the hands. Put them up again if this is your very first experience in network marketing. See, if your hand is in the air, we can't talk with you like you've been around for 10 or 15 or 20 years. It's not an age-appropriate conversation. But if you've been around in the industry for 10, 15, 20 years, we can have a different discussion, a different dialogue. So kind of where do you settle? And so what I ended up doing or learning the hard way was what I knew to be true and what I taught were 2 different things. I taught what anyone and what everyone could immediately do. That became something that would work, or would duplicate, as opposed to something would work. By contrast, these goal-setting programs, I remember I attended one years and years ago. If you've been to this same program, this is, not a slam against the program. It was fantastic. I got some great ideas. But basically, the teacher said, if you want to live an extraordinary life, the very first thing you've got to do is look 20 years into the future. You've got to get a crystal clear vision of where you're going to be 20 years from today. The home, the house, the kids, the life, the money, what's going on, 20 years. And just paint this incredible picture of the future 20 years out. Now, once you've got this, we had this homework assignment. Once you've got this beautiful picture of the future, he said the rest is easy. You cut that 20-year goal in half, you've got your 10-year goal. You cut the 10-year goal in half, you've got your 5-year goal. You divide the 5-year goal by 1 or by 5, and you've got your 1-year goal. You divide that by 12, you've got your monthly goal. You divide that by 4, you've got your weekly goal. You divide the weekly goals by the 7, you got your daily goal. You divide those by the hour, 8 hours, you've got your daily goal or your hourly goal. And then he said, live every hour of every day, of every week, of every month, of every year, and over the next 20 years, you'll get exactly what you pictured that you wanted. And everyone, including me, took notes. I'm writing all this stuff down. How many people do you think a week or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 after that course had mapped out their 20 years and worked backwards from there? No. You need proof of how people really react. Take a friend to a restaurant they've never been before for lunch and watch how long it takes them to order food. I mean, it's lunch. How many times have we heard this in our lifetime by the wait person? Do you need another minute? It's 1 meal out of 3 for the day. It's 1 meal out of 21 for the week. You need another minute, it's food. Pick something, a salad, a sandwich, it's not hard. Pick something, be done with it. What do you recommend? Ask that question. If they say, that sounds good, I'll take that. And they got to look over the whole menu as if this is the single most important decision they're going to make in their entire life. And these are the people that we want to look 20 years into the future. They can't do it. It's not possible. So although fundamentally, if we could get them to, it would be effective, we can't get them to. So you start backing down to find out what can you actually get people to do. And then that becomes what we teach. Here's what we found we can get people to do about 90 days out. That's what we found we can get most people to do. Brand new person comes on board today, we can have them look about 90 days into the future. We can get them to see that far out. You know, and when you start recognizing the brilliance of this 90-day strategy, I'm not the one that came up with it. I'm not the one who basically said, when a woman is expecting that we'll have first trimester, about 90 days, second trimester, about 90 days, third trimester, about 90 days. I'm not the one who created the seasons. You know, about 3 months of winter, 3 months of spring, 3 months of fall, or summer, then 3 months of fall. I'm not the one who came up with that plan. I'm not the one at the Internal Revenue Service who said, we want your money about every 90 days. I didn't come up with that plan. I'm not the one who designed the curriculums at the university that said the classes are going to be about every 90 days. I didn't come up with any of that stuff. All I did was observe that every place it seemed to matter, they had figured out, someone, God or someone else had figured out, you know what, they can do it in about 90 days. We can make winter cold and hard and nasty, but you know, we can't do that for a year. They won't stay, they won't like it, they'll move. That's why the people from Canada, and I love Canada, but you know, like 90% of the whole country is living as close to the United States as they can possibly get. They're not going further. Too cold, too long. People in Phoenix, they have second homes, but not in Las Vegas. Have you noticed that? You know, too hot, too long. You know, they want to just break it up a little bit. I've seen mothers, you know, can have morning sickness for 90 days. I mean, I can't imagine as a man. That's, I suppose, why we don't have babies. But 90 days, every morning throwing up, every morning throwing up, every morning throwing up. And then eventually second trimester comes and things kind of even out in the body. And third trimester and you're a little bit better. And all of a sudden you've got to hold that brand new precious child in your arms. And it doesn't seem very much longer before that mother is saying to her husband, I want to do it again. But show me a mother who had morning sickness for the whole first, second, and third trimester for 9 entire months. You show me a mother who went through that, I'll show you the mother of an only child. I mean, it's like, I'm not doing that again. It's too much, too much, too much. So if we ask people to do things that are difficult, we can't have the difficulty last out for 90 days or for more than 90 days. It's just too long. You see what I'm saying? So we've got to think about where are we going. Let's only look out 90 days. Here's the way the plan works. It's very, very simple. I'm suggesting you try this, try it, and when you find this is very effective, it's not perfect, it's effective. And that's what we're going for, because duplication is not what can I do. Duplication is what can I get you to do, to get him to do, to get her to do, and all the way down. So 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 levels down, people all know what this new plan is called, which I am still trying to learn. Your new point system. Oh, you've already given an acronym? Okay. The new people will have no idea what you're talking about. Just call it what it is. Loyalty Rewards Program, right? Otherwise, they're going to think it's a new credit card through doTERRA. You know, get on this one, spend the money, send you to Japan, Hawaii, someplace else. You want to sit down, try this for about 90 days. When you find out how effective this is for you, begin teaching it to your people. And I promise you, it'll take you about 3 cycles of this, about 3 90-day cycles for you to grab the significance of the brilliance, the simplicity of this. Here's all you do. This is the month of March. Yes, still? March? Okay. So if we started with April, you just say all of April, all of May, all of June. That's 90 days out. So July 1st, where do you want to be in these 2 areas of your life? This is all we teach new people. Title and income. That's all we teach new people, title and income. Hey, I know we're just talking here. I know you're brand new within the business, but let's see. If we started really aggressively going at this April, May, June, July 1st, how much money would you like to be earning? Part-time basis, how much? would kind of get you excited in your business. Now, you can talk to somebody who's been around a while and ask them the same question. Hey, I know you're earning a little bit right now, but over the next 3 months, what would you like to see your check go to? Somebody who's at the top of their game, same thing. All of April, all of May, all of June, what do you want that July check to start looking like when it starts coming into your bank account? Just title and income, that's all it is. And then what is the title that is corresponding to that income within the compensation plan? What will you need to do? How will the team need to be structured? Where will you need to be to probably have the best chance of getting there? For some who don't want much, maybe they can do it just retailing. Someone says, if I could make $400 or $500 a month, I'd be happy. Maybe they can just retail. But for somebody who wants to make $40,000 or $50,000 a month, that's more difficult to do through just retailing. You see what I'm saying? For that, you'll need a team. So how big does the team need to be, and what's its structure like, et cetera, et cetera. But look at those 90-day goals. And then remember that when you get there, at the end of that 90-day cycle, here's the wording that you want for your notes, so you'll remember this, okay? The plan is looking forward, so the word needs to go down plan. The do is that we're going to go through that 3-month period of time. At the end of that 3 months, the next word is review. We're going to take a look back. How did it work? How is it for family? How is it for my career, my business? How is it within the structure of what's happening around me, my friends, etc.? You've just got to review things from time to time. And then make any adjustments that are necessary. And the last word is repeat. So we could say adjust/repeat. Repeat what? Well, all of July, all of August, all of September. So October 1st, where do you want to be? Title-wise, where do you want to be income-wise? Now, if you hit that goal, don't celebrate too much. It's just 90 days. And if you don't hit that goal, don't berate yourself too much either. It's only 90 days. It's a 90-day goal. If it didn't work out for you, did you take off too big a bite? Or did you not put in the effort necessary? Just think about that. Review it, adjust, and then plan out again and start moving forward. And follow the seasons, follow the cycle, follow that 90-day schedule. To this day, after 25 years, I'm still on a 90-day schedule. I still look out 90 days in the future. Where do I want to be? Now, my goals are different today than when I was actively building my business. But I use this 90-day cycle for my family, for my finances, for my fitness, for the fun. We're looking out and we're planning within that 90-day cycle. I mean, it's just an easy strategy to implement throughout the other facets of your life that are important to you. Now, is long-term planning beneficial? Yes. I wouldn't want to be around this company if I found out they were only looking 90 days down the road and didn't have a clue. If you said, where do you guys hope to be in July? July? We're only looking to April right now. That would be scary. So I'm not saying long-term planning doesn't work. What I'm saying is the next new person you bring into the business, if you try to have them figure out their why and make out a 5 or 10-year plan or go down the road, very few of them actually will. And so this is not about what will work. This is about what you can actually teach that will duplicate, that will give you traction, where they're on that path and they're starting to get some success. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay, so we get everybody on the auto order program. We've got to make absolutely certain we've got our 90-day plan solidly in place, and where we start with the 90 days is completely arbitrary. If you come on board in January, it's January, February, March, April 1st. If you come on board in February, it's February, March, April, May 1st. It's just arbitrary. It doesn't matter where you start. Don't try to round this up and get it on the cycle of the seasons. I mean, for example, when does winter end? Does anyone know? Depends on where you live. No, there's an official date on the calendar. I mean, there really is. It says no more winter. It says so right there. March 21st. Yeah, has anyone walked outside the day before and went, wow, cold, the day before, like, wow, nice? No, it's arbitrary. Someone just had to decide. It's the same thing. You just have to decide. You decide. But move forward in 90-day cycles. Track this and watch what happens for yourself. You're going to find that it will work for you extraordinarily well. Number 3. We've got to teach the basics of the business. If you want something to duplicate, and again, let's be clear on duplication. Duplication is not what works. Too many people will ask, often, of leaders, hey, what do you think about this? And they'll give an idea or a strategy. And you'll hear that idea or that strategy, and you'll think that will probably work. I mean, that idea of going to the fair and having the chocolate thing and dipping in the stuff and the orange peel and 5 people sponsored in, and that obviously did what? It worked. But now, if we followed that strategy, then the next person is going to say, when's the next chocolate festival? And they're going to hang around until next summer or whenever it is, and they're going to say, hey, I'm going to get a big booth there. See, so it won't necessarily duplicate. Okay? So those things that work, we develop this strategy over time. The things that work become in addition to, not instead of. We want you to do all those things. Some of you have connections. I mean, if you certainly knew someone who was extraordinarily well connected in the marketplace, but you were the only one who knew them, you wouldn't say, nah, I mean, that works, but it won't duplicate. I just won't call them. I mean, that would be silly, right? You want to do everything you possibly can, but you do the things that work in addition to, not instead of. What you do repetitiously is what will duplicate. And what duplicates basically says, what I'm teaching you, you need to be able to immediately teach the next person you meet, with or without my help, whether that person lives across the street, across the town, or across the country. And indeed, we could probably add now, or around the world. And if what I'm teaching you, you can immediately teach the next person you meet, with or without my help, whether they're across the street, across the town, across the country, around the world, that will probably duplicate. But if I have to be there, if you have to be there, if something has to be in place that is a finite item or entity, human or whatnot, it'll work, but you won't get any traction. Or as a gentleman kind of shortened that little paraphrase, or that little definition of mine years ago, and he said, if a dud can do this with a stud 3,000 miles away, it'll probably duplicate. So you think about the weakest person you have in your entire business going after the most successful individual on the East Coast. And whatever you're putting in place, if the weakest person you have within your team can go talk to the strongest person they have within their circle of influence on the East Coast, and they can successfully talk about this business and get that individual involved, you have a plan in place that will duplicate. Because it's not about strengths and weaknesses. It's about the system of explaining the business. How do we do that? 3 fundamentals. Here they are. We need to teach people how to prospect. We need to teach people how to present, and we need to teach people ultimately how to duplicate, what duplication really means. Let's talk about prospecting for just a couple of minutes. And like I say, I want to make absolutely certain that I'm very clear on this. I'm not discounting anything that you're currently doing. Anything that you're doing that is giving you some traction, keep doing that. That's in addition to. But the things that you want to be doing on a daily, repetitive basis are the things that actually anyone could do. So when it comes to prospecting, here's the formula for success. 2 new contacts a day in the marketplace at least 4 days a week. That strategy has been proven over the last 10, 15 years by a multitude of companies, and the people that have taken it and implemented it, they've gone right to the top within their respective businesses. You know, from where they are, ground zero, to all the way to the top. Triple Stark Fleet Commander with a secret decoder pin level. I mean, these people, 2 contacts a day in the marketplace, at least 4 days a week. Because here are the numbers, if you care to put them down. 2 contacts a day in the marketplace, 4 days a week is 8 contacts in a week. 8 contacts in a week times 4 weeks in a month, 32 contacts. 32 new contacts in a month over a 12-month period of time, over a year, is 384 new contacts. Now, 384 may not seem like that big a number until you think that you have a little team of 10. Now, try to imagine a small team of 10 that were implementing this strategy. And at the end of 1 year, they talked to 3,840 people. What do you think would happen to that little team of 10? Could you stay a little team of 10? Could anybody really be that wretched, that miserable, that ridiculous at this business? I mean, if you just stood there with a bottle open, just somewhere by a mall, eventually someone would stop you and say, what is that? You couldn't be that bad if you were out there. The problem with most of us is we do what? Nothing. And we'll get to why that is in just a moment. But we've got to teach people the fundamentals of prospecting. 2 new contacts a day in the marketplace, a minimum of 4 days a week. So, intellectually, we all know, okay, no problem. Make a warm list of everybody that you know. Start picking up the phone. We've got scripts and leaders and different things you can use, recorded messages and webinars and home meetings you can plug them into. You've got a variety of ways that you can do this. So it should be pretty simple. I make my list of all these things, my Fred and Wilma list or whatever it was, and I make all that and I put it down. Frank, is it Frank or Fred? Frank? Okay. It's too bad it wouldn't be Fred and Wilma because we could really remember that one. Much easier. But Anyway, you make your list of all these people. You've got it. How many people do you know, though? Have you ever talked to these individuals? They got a nice little list. They just don't, they don't call anybody. You found that to be the case? Ever wondered why? Why people would actually make a list and not pick up the phone and call them? They don't know how. And they're scared. If I were your parent, some of you might remember this from conference. If I were your parent talking to you as son or daughter, how many of these statements could you finish out loud? Children should be seen. Don't speak. And whatever you do, don't talk to. Anybody see a problem here? Yeah, I know. But if you have in your consciousness, don't talk to strangers, if you have in your consciousness, I can't speak unless someone speaks to me first, and even if they do, I probably would be better served just to be seen and not heard. If that really is what is going on in your mind, is it any wonder why you're sitting there and you see someone who could potentially be great for your business and you can't get your mouth to engage? Your palms start to get a little sweaty, stomach starts to churn a little bit, you can't get your butt off the chair. You know, you start thinking, I got to go talk to him. No. You know, you go down to a little ice cream parlor, Salt Lake City, in the middle of the summer, and you see a person there. I'll wait for them to order. Yeah, I shouldn't interrupt them while they're ordering. Let's just let them get a cone first. Now they get their cone. Well, we should at least let them sit down, maybe have part of the cone before we say something. Now they're eating part of the cone. Maybe we should finish. Maybe we should interrupt. Maybe we should say something. Maybe we should wait till they're done. Oh, wait, other people have joined them. Well, that would be rude. I can't talk to more than one person. That would be wrong. And then before we know it, they've left the building. What are we thinking? No, they wouldn't have been any good anyway. You know, I didn't have a good feeling about that person. I mean, they ordered like ice cream I wouldn't have ordered. I mean, who orders that kind of stuff? I mean, it just seemed wrong. And the way they were letting it drip all over is just not good. No, it's a good thing I didn't talk with them. And we procrastinate. In fact, here's a little key phrase for your notes. When procrastination shows up in your life, that should be a huge signal. It should be a huge wake-up call that you're not prepared. If you want to, my definition of procrastination, yours may be different, but my definition is I want to, and yet when we follow you around, we find you don't. You know, I'm going to clean the garage. Okay, do you know where it is? Why isn't it clean? Well, you know, you start to find out that there's some disconnect going on. Don't know how, don't know what to do with the stuff, don't want to take the time away from my family, only have 2 days off, don't want to invest one in the garage. I mean, whatever it is, there's a reason you're being held back. Something's stopping you. It should be a huge wake-up call. And for most people out there in the marketplace, when it comes to prospecting, which is the engine that fuels this business, nobody to talk to, it's like you literally have taken and hung a closed for business sign around your neck. And you're just walking around saying, not today. We've got to get people to be able to overcome the fear that was put into them from infancy. Because I tell you something, if you actually pick up and read some of the books, they're really scary is what they suggest. Do you know why people were told not to talk to strangers? Your parents just didn't want you to have any new friends? Is that the real reason? Why did they tell you not to talk to strangers? They'll kill you. I mean, they're going to do horrible things to you, and then they're going to kill you. That's the reason. You'll die. So in the back of your mind, you have linked talking to a new person and death. And you can't figure out why this is hard. You think, I mean, you're laughing, but it's not that funny. I mean, seriously. So how do we overcome it? Well, if you don't know how to solve a problem and you're going to university, they have a curriculum. And somewhere during that curriculum, they teach you how to solve that particular issue or challenge. If you're becoming a lawyer, they teach you that level of law. If you're becoming a doctor, they teach you that particular disease. You know, if you're becoming an accountant or CPA, they teach you how that actually works. If you're becoming an engineer, they teach you how the structure functions. I mean, they teach you how to solve these issues. What are most of us doing in teaching prospecting? Nothing. They tell them, make a list of everybody you know, call them. Use these words. Okay, but they don't. Because even if they know those people, what have they been told? Don't speak unless you're spoken to. So picking up the phone and calling violates their programming. Now, you want to know a little interesting spin on this? How you can use this to your advantage? How this one programming technique can actually help catapult your business to the next level? Knowing this is so ingrained in our society? None of you? Well, okay. I'm here anyway, so I'll tell you. Came prepared to share it. I thought it was important. Maybe if some of you write it down, you'll recognize the significance of it later. Here's what you want to do. Number one, you've got to recognize virtually every person you're talking to, regardless of culture or custom, they've been taught the same things. I was in Singapore, they could finish those statements. I've been in New Zealand, they could finish those statements. I mean, I was in Finland through an interpreter, they could finish those statements. I mean, it's like in London, they know that stuff. Canada, of course, Canada, you try this with people in virtually every culture around the world, and in their own way of speaking, they know, don't speak unless you're spoken to, be seen and not heard, and don't talk to strangers. It seems to be universal. So we can use that to our advantage. But it comes first and foremost with a fundamental understanding that this is how people have been trained from infancy. So, rule number one in prospecting is we must talk first. Because they've been given permission to do what? They can talk to us if we talk to them. We have to understand it's just a programming issue. Your parents instilled that in you because they loved you and they cared for you. Well, at least the stranger part. The other part's really quite fun. Do you know why you were told to be seen and not heard? Not speak unless you were spoken to? Your parents. I mean, it's what we did. I mean, I remember when our son was born, I mean, we did everything we could do to get him to talk. Everything. I mean, if his name is Taylor, so it'd be like, Taylor's eyes, Daddy's eyes. Taylor's nose, Daddy's nose. Anybody else do the same thing? And you'd say it over and over and over and over until it took like thousands of repetitions. And finally, boom, they got Dada or something like that came out. We're like so excited. And then about half that number of repetitions, they got the next word. And about a fraction of that, they got the next word. And about a fraction of that, they got the next word. And about a fraction of that, they got the next word. And then one day, sometimes if we're not careful, they're walking around the house about maybe 3, 4 years of age. They only need to hear something once. And they got it. You notice that? Not good, not good, which is why we always need to be on guard. But the point of the matter is this. Then they start talking. They don't stop. What's this? What's that? How come? How come? Why? And there's only so much of that any of us can take. And so at some point in time, every parent who desperately waited for this child to talk says, you know what? Children should be seen and not heard. Kid is perplexed, doesn't know what to do. Father, mother amplifies that. Don't speak unless you're spoken to. And it starts from there. Crazy, huh? So we got to remember, this is how people were programmed. We need to make the first move. That's rule number one. And then rule number one, and please, a word of caution, be safe about what I'm about to share with you. Be safe about it. Be smart about it. I'm going to imagine that as adults, you're wise enough and aware enough to recognize where and when it is safe to talk to someone you don't know. If there is any doubt in your mind, avoid that situation. But if you know, safe environment, warm people, I've watched them for a period of time, probably not someone whose design is to do me harm, then you have to remember, I have to approach them first. That's number one. Still, whether you know them or not, I have to approach them first. You've got to say the first thing. And secondarily, and hear me on this, it's critical, they cannot see you as a stranger. They can't see you as a stranger. Because if they see you as a stranger, what have they been told? They can't talk to you. They can't see you as a stranger. So there's a little trick that we learned in Dale Carnegie's masterpiece entitled How to Win Friends and Influence People. Here's the little trick. He said you've got to find a way to get people to know you, to like you, and to trust you. And the way you get people to know you, like you, and trust you is body language and actual physical words. But we all know how to do this. Here's the beautiful part. There is no learning curve. There's just going out and trying it for yourself until you become comfortable. But there's really no learning curve. We all know the difference between how we talk to a friend, someone we've known our whole life, and how we talk to someone we've just met. Agreed? Some of you came up and you put your hand out. Now, for guys, that's okay, but women, I never know what to do. You know, you put your hand out, hi, okay. I mean, Nice to meet you. I mean, I know immediately we're what? Strangers. I've never had a friend come to my house ever and go, how you doing? It would just be weird. Like, you know, you open your door, you see the friend, you invite them in, you tell them where the food is, turn on the game or whatever the reason is they're there, and you go from that point forward, right? You see something on your friend's person you want to comment on, what do you ask? Pardon me, would it be all right if I asked you a question? Is this how we talk to our friends? No, that's not what we do. How do you approach your friends? You know what you say to your friends. If you were going to invite your friends over for a game, would you call them up and say, okay, so like I was thinking about having some people at my house. If you don't want to come or you're busy, I mean, I get that, but it's like on Wednesday maybe, or Thursday. No, probably Thursday. Yeah, Thursday would be good. Like 7:30, maybe. And, you know, if you, what's your friend thinking? What is wrong with you? You want to have somebody at your house at 7:30 on a Thursday night? How do you call a friend over? What are you doing Thursday? 7:30. Nothing. Come on over. Bye. It's effective. You should try it. They come over. You didn't tell me it was going to be a doTERRA party. You never asked. That's how you treat a friend, right? Next time you should probably ask. No, you've got to find the words that work, but just remember the programming. Use it to your advantage. Best place to practice, go to a place where people congregate and just talk to them. And if you're really, really, really not comfortable with this, go to another town. When I'm traveling, I have one favorite place to go. If this doesn't work for you, go someplace else. My favorite place to go is a Starbucks because the people turn so stinking fast. If you mess with one, it doesn't matter. They're gone in 2 minutes anyway. Atlanta Airport, I was there last week, and I'm just standing there eating my food in the Starbucks where you get your coffee, you know, where the barista will put the coffee or the tea or the sandwich or whatever you ordered right there. I'm just standing there. I'm just messing with every single person who came. The people behind the counter are cracking up. The people, some of them are leaving. Some don't know what to do. Wow, what kind of a sandwich is that? Let me taste that. Rip off a piece of that. You know, they're like, what? But you know, every 2-3, they'll rip off some. They'll give you some. That's pretty good. What are you eating? Hummus. What's hummus? You've never had hummus? Here. Stick a carrot in there, hand it to them. You just mess with them. I got nothing to do. I have 2 hours before my flight. I don't care. I'm not even building a business anymore. I just want to prove to myself how people really are. And the funny thing is, if you had been there in that Starbucks last weekend, you'd have had the time of your life. Because you hang around people like that, they're just fun to be with. Okay? Remember that. Go out there and have some fun. Prospecting. You've got to use the numbers. When I was coaching people and working with them on my team and their business and their check wasn't growing, first thing I said is, are you on the products every day? Are you taking the products every day? Second thing, what are your 90-day goals? Tell me your title goal, tell me your income goal. If they didn't have it, we stopped there. Remember I said it's like a doctor. You can use this as a checklist for diagnosing a problem. But if they had the 90-day goals, I'd say, great, let's go to activity. What are you doing from a prospecting perspective? How many days are you prospecting? What are those days? And how many new prospects are you generating? And what are you doing to accomplish that? And guess where we'd almost always stop? Right there. People were not prospecting. I will tell you the vast majority of the people in your business that want to have a larger income, that want to have more time freedom, that want to have a better life are just not prospecting. So if we have an issue with people not understanding something, we can't fault them if we see it repetitively. If the engineer is teaching something from the front of the room that's causing a problem with every student class after class after class, we can't blame all of the students. We have to say, I'm teaching over their head, or I'm not teaching basic enough, or I'm not spending enough time. But we've got to get it down where they understand fundamentally how this works. Make sense? Critical. And that's where all of you come in. As this room goes, so goes your company. So you've got to make sure it starts with you. You've got to be out there talking to a couple of new people every day. Critically, critically important. And then presentation. Presentation is nothing more than the art of telling the story. If you've listened to a little CD I've produced called Recipe for Success, I talk about keeping the main thing the main thing. And the main thing is simply how many times today is the doTERRA story going to be told for your company? How many times today is the story going to be told by you, a tool, an associate, or an event? How many times? You learn to track that, you can build a financial wall around your family nothing can get through. But you've got to learn to track that. How many times? How many times? We had a little form we made up the box, some of you know this. How big is the box? Not very big. I didn't want a story, just a number. So I had a little conversation with Mary. How many times did the story get told today, Mary? And Mary would say, well, and Mary wanted to give me a story. You know, kids are sick, something was going on, husband had to work late, this, that, the other thing. Look, all those are reasons. I get that, but they won't fit in the box. I can't put in the box. The box is too small. So I just need from Mary? I need a number. Guess what Mary says the number is? 0. All you can say is, Mary, I understand the kids, your challenges. I get that, but all I can say is 0, not a good number. We got to go to work on that number if you want you to get the dreams and the goals, the things you set out for yourself. So we have to work with Mary within her situation, with what's going on with her, so that Mary feels comfortable and compelled at the same time. Comfortable from the standpoint, I can do this. Compelled, I want to. And she starts moving forward. But presentation is telling the story. Now, I'll give you my best 2 cents on telling the story. In my perfect world, I would never tell it. In my perfect world, it would be a video, a webinar. It would be a class where someone else is in front of the room, unless I'm the person in front of the room teaching it for someone else. It would be that third-party validation, and third party is anything that isn't you. A little flip chart if you have it, something that you can direct them to. Now, occasionally, you have to be the story teller. Occasionally, you're the one telling them about that. If you are, here comes the second piece of advice for you. Try it on for size, walk around in it for a little bit of time and see how it fits. But the second best piece of advice I can give you is use a third-party tool and you just be the spokesperson for what's being told. We had an expression we taught everyone. They learned this, which went like this. If your mouth is moving, your finger had better be pointing. So I got the little brochure here. See this when the company was established right here, a little bit about the business. Here's kind of what's going on. See this, here's our flagship product. Here's what people are doing. You see this over here. Here's the compensation. Here's how it works. Here's the money people could be making. Whatever it is that I was verbalizing myself, if I was telling something, I was actually referencing something else. Do you know why? Because if I became really, really good at this, and you can tell, by the way, if you have this issue going on in your own personal business, if anyone ever says to you, you know what? You're going to be great at this, but I could never do that. If you ever hear that, here's what they're saying. I couldn't do what you just did. I mean, you could give a presentation that would win you an Academy Award. You know, it's got a little camera on you. You dazzle them with your brilliance. You've got all this stuff. We grow this in the far regions of wherever it's harvested, and you get the whole story down, and they're just hanging on every word. And at the very end, you're saying, you want to become a part of this? And you're thinking, how long does it take to learn that story? I mean, I don't have time for that. I mean, I got to catch the show tonight. I mean, you know, they're going to tell us who gets kicked off American Idol tonight. I mean, how long does it take to learn this story? That's 2 hours of my life. I'm not going to give up for learning this story. But if somebody's just pointing and reading and pointing and reading and pointing and reading, my favorite way of closing an individual was I just handed them whatever it was, brochure, booklet, flip chart, whatever it was, and said, do you think you could go home and tell this story to your spouse? Here's when you know you nailed it. You mean point to the pictures and read? Yeah, I think I could do that. Fantastic. Because what did I just send as a signal to that new individual? It's not hard. If I can point to the pictures and read the captions underneath, the prospect can point to the pictures and read the caption underneath. If I can point to the video and just sit back and watch it, the prospect can point to the video and sit back and watch it. If I can invite them to a webinar and somebody else tells that story, the prospect can go to a webinar. If I can invite people over home where somebody else is presenting it, they can do the same thing. You see what I'm saying? People always want to know, can I do this? Do I have time to do this? And would I feel comfortable doing what you've just done with my family, my friends, and my coworkers? That's what people want to know. Presenting, keep the main thing the main thing. Duplication. We're still on point number 3. Duplication. We've already defined it. Let me remind you, though, of what duplication is. Duplication is just doing point number 1, getting them on the product. Point number 2, setting the 90-day goals. Point number 3, working with them so that they know how to prospect and present and repeat that cycle. That's really the basics of duplication at this point for them. For the brand new person, that's what duplication is. It's repeating, 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 repeating. Maybe you've heard this analogy, maybe you haven't, I'm not sure, but most Americans know how to make a Big Mac. they've heard the commercial enough times, they know how to do it. 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions, on a sesame seed bun. Okay, here's what's interesting. Nowhere in the little jingle does it say add a middle bun. Doesn't say add a middle bun, it says on a sesame seed bun. On a sesame seed bun would suggest top and bottom, on. Not in, doesn't say that. So you think carbs are not that great, people probably shouldn't eat that kind of food anyway, so you want to open a McDonald's franchise, you're just going to yank that middle bun out of the Big Mac in your restaurant. What do you think McDonald's will do with your franchise? No, if you're selling a Big Mac, it's 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun, and stick a middle one in the middle, or stick that bun in the middle even though it's not part of the jingle. That's duplication. Back when I used to be a carnivore, I would occasionally stop in, because you travel to some interesting places in the world, interesting food choices, and you'd see the Golden Arches and you'd go, yes, because you knew what you were going to get. I mean, you couldn't read the board, but you could point. You knew what it was, and it would come out and it smelled the same and it tasted the same and it satisfied your craving, right? You watch someone present here, go 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 levels within their organization and see if that is being repeated. That's duplication. Here's the phrase that pays. Please write this down. People who successfully duplicate are people who are willing to master the mundane. That's not a word we use very often in the English language. Mundane. One of the definitions, my favorite, and I think it's Webster's or might have been the New Oxford Dictionary, but it's one of the definitions of mundane, is repetitiously boring. I gave up all the fancy stuff when I was building my business. I was repetitiously boring. If I wanted to increase the size of my arm, someone said, pick up the weight, put it back down. Then pick up the weight, and then put it back down. Then pick up the weight, and then put it back down. And then what did you do? You pick up the weight, and then you put it back down. No one said, go on television, look for the latest, greatest thing. You know, try to take that. They said, pick up the weight and put it back down. Wait a couple of days, and then do what? Pick up the weight, put it back down, pick up the weight, and put it back down. And if you ever meet anyone who's bought into that belief, you'll know when they take their shirt off. Because it's really effective. It's also so stinking boring that most of us do it about 3 or 4 or 5 times and say, I don't want to do this anymore. So you have to ask, do I want the payoff? Do I want the benefit? Do I want what comes out of building a successful business? And if you do, find those things that are very successful, but they're not necessarily all that fun to do. It's like this morning. Did any of you wake up this morning and say, I can't believe I get to brush my teeth again? Did any of you? Any of you? Seriously. But how many of you brushed your teeth this morning? I mean, it's like, I hope all of you. You don't have something you just put in and it skips that. Did I miss? Did you? Do you? No, nothing yet? Then you still have to do the brushing, right? Okay, what happens if you go, I just don't want to do that? I've been brushing my teeth since I was a kid. I'm done with that deal. What happens? Exactly, in a short period of time, problem solved. I mean, isn't that fantastic? Some of you will get that on the way home. But you get the idea. Repetitiously boring. Find those things. They're effective. And they need to be done again and again and again. That's duplication. Number 4, one of those things that is mundane. One of those things that's repetitiously boring. One of those things we can't get new people to buy into. I mean, it just blows my mind. It's called attending all the events. They go, you know, if I had people, I'd come. Really? You mean if you had people, you'd come? Well, here's a question for you. When do you think it starts? Having people and coming, or coming and eventually having people? I mean, it's kind of the chicken and the egg thing, but when do you think it starts? Seriously. I have probably been to over 1,000 events in my career. I had someone come up to me one time, we were talking, and they said, you always seem to be so up, so positive, so excited. How do you maintain such an incredible spirit in this really negative world? I said, I attend a lot of events. You know, you get 3 or 4 of these in a week, you get kind of excited, kind of jazzed, kind of turned up, kind of turned on. Most people, they don't come to these, do they? No. You know, I asked a couple of people, they didn't want to go. I didn't want to go alone, so I stayed home. You got weekly events, yes? Monthly events? Probably quarterly events? Semi-annual events? Annual events? Leadership events? Retreats for the top people? National conference? Get them on your calendar. Get them on your calendar. I'll promise you this. When any of you here in this room have attended as many events as I've attended, you'll have everything I have. Now, the only question you should probably want to ask is, what do you have? That would be a reasonable question. But if you came up to Seattle and you hung out with us for 2, 3, 4 weeks or whatever it was, and you found out I only work 65 days a year, this being one of them, and I have 300 days with my family to do whatever I please, you'd think, I like that idea. That's not a bad idea. Who said we have to work a 40-hour week? Who said we have to work 40 years of our life? Who said we should retire on less money than we're current? Why would you retire and have your check go down? Who bought into that? Yes, I'm going to work really hard to pay everything off because when I don't work, I will have less money. Okay, there's a brilliant strategy. Why? Why doesn't it just go up and up and up and up and up income-wise as your investment of time goes down and down and down and down and down because you put systems in place, you put duplicatable practices and principles in place that other people don't need you. They can do it with or without you. Across the street, across town, across the country, around the world. Attend every event. Number 5. This is something I can promise you most of you in this room have not embraced yet. The only reason I can think of is that you might not even know this is something that needs to be embraced. But I will tell you it is one of the critical missing components to wherever you are and that next destination where you'd like to aspire to. And that's to find and embrace the concept of a business workout partner. You need a business workout partner. They do not need to be above you or below you or beside you. They just need to be someone in the business that you can relate to, connect with, somebody who will drive you a bit or someone that you can help drive or propel. In a perfect world, you'd sponsor them. In the perfect world, your business workout partner would be somebody that you brought into the business and the two of you just clicked, more than maybe somebody else within the business. You just like them. You got along well with them. They're the person you would want to go to the gym and work out with. They're the person that you would want to have come over and actually hang out with your family. They're the person that you could push a little and they could push you a little and you could both grow as a result of, that relationship. Most of us don't do it. Now, the analogy to kind of wrap your mental arms around is going into the gym. If you go into the gym alone and you think, I'm going to do this an hour on Monday, hour on Tuesday, I'll take Wednesday off, I'll go into the gym an hour on Thursday, an hour on Friday, I'll take the weekend off, and I'm going to do this for the next 35, 40, 50, 60, 70 years of my life. How many people do you think will continue? Very few. They'll quit. You know why? You ever been to the gym? It's like so boring. Pick the weight up, put the weight down. Pick the weight up, put the weight down. Pick the weight up, put the weight down. Wipe your sweat off the weight, move on to the next weight. Pick that weight up, put that weight down. It's just boring. That's why nobody goes. Statistically, 97% of you and the rest of the people out there that have a gym membership card in your wallet or purse haven't been there in the last 6 months. You ever notice how they usually charge for those? A lot of money to join, very little not to go. For only $19.95, you don't ever need to return. You go, I can afford not going back for $19.95. I'll go down there and sign up today. I mean, if you know anyone, if we have any gym owners here, you validate that. If they invited every single person the gym had on their active roster line, they couldn't put the cars in the parking lot. They don't worry about it. You know why? They know you're not coming back because you picked it up and you put it down. You picked it up and you put it down. But in the back of your mind, you know you need to do it. But it's so boring, you stopped. But get yourself a workout partner, a physical workout partner, and going to the gym becomes tolerable. Or putting a gym in your home becomes doable. You got someone to partner with, someone to banter around with, someone to spot you, someone where you can kind of, push each other a little bit. That's what we all need, not only in the gym physically, but in this business. But let me give you a word of caution. These relationships, the business workout partner or the one that's helping you in the gym, they're relationships. And that doesn't mean you're going to be successful the very first go-around. So if you find somebody and it doesn't work out, it's not that the strategy is flawed, it's the chemistry wasn't there. You need to continue working with someone until you find someone you just connect with. You know, someone that, well, as they say, iron sharpens iron. Find someone who can be that iron in your life, sharpening you, and you in turn sharpening them. The two of you aspiring to the same goals in the same direction together, where you travel together, you grow your business together. You're there for each other when things are good, and you're there for each other when things aren't. Does that make sense? I hope by the next time I have an opportunity or the privilege of coming back, every one of you that are sincerely serious about your business have embraced the concept of a business workout partner. It'll be incredible. You tell them, I'm going to go get 2 prospects today. And they say, okay. And they check in with you about noon. How you doing? How you doing? And you're like, well. And you get a text back that says, well won't fit in the box. I'm telling you. It changes everything. It just changes everything. Then you think, okay, okay, okay. You know, and you get out there and you talk to people. And first it's not that comfortable. But eventually it becomes better, becomes better. Make sense? Got to do it. Number 6. We could spend an entire seminar on this single point. I've heard it mentioned by virtually every speaker in different words, phrases. It's so pervasive within our society, within our profession, and yet oftentimes when I hear it and I start querying people a little bit about it, I find out that like the egg, no one has explained to them how to take it out of the shell. They've got the concept or parts of the concept, but they don't have what's necessary to actually make it work for them. And as a result, it isn't working for them. The concept I'm talking about here, which is one of the 7 strategies that needs to be put together like a recipe, is that of personal development. Personal development. Now, I'm going to define personal development from my vantage point first. You may have a different way of looking at this, but this is just the way I see personal development. Personal development, and I don't have a microphone that'll move, which is okay, but personal development says, I see myself over here, for example. This is my family, this is my finances, my fitness, my fun, social, cultural, spiritual, whatever's going on in my life, this is where I am. And without people pointing fingers at me saying you should be thinner or healthier or fitter or more financially stable or you should be doing more, without people pointing fingers, what am I saying to me? What am I saying about where I see myself in the areas of life that are important? And if I'm comfortable, fantastic. To the degree that you're comfortable is to the degree you don't need much, or I guess we could almost argue any personal development in that area. But if you're over here and you see yourself one day being over here, then the difference between those two, whether it's a small gap or a crack or a cavern or a chasm, whatever that is, that difference between those two is where personal development comes in. Because obviously, if you knew what you needed to know, if you'd embrace the techniques, the habits, the principles, if the practices, whatever it is, you'd already be over here. Does that make sense? I mean, for example, it only takes about, I would say 10 years to become wealthy in America. So if you've lived here for 10 years and you're not wealthy, then what we know statistically is if you're okay where you are economically, fantastic. Look, if you said to me, my ultimate goal is to be with my family and just to provide a living, I don't care about money, the only thing that matters to me is time with my children, then I'm not interested in your income any more than you're interested in your income. But if you're over here saying, I can't support my family, I can't take care of my family, I can't provide for my family, I need more for my family, or I want to be able to provide more for my family, and that's you saying that, and you've been at whatever it is that you're doing for more than 10 years and you're still struggling, we have a disconnect between what you say you want and where you ultimately would like to be. Does that make sense? Personal development needs to come in. So here comes the snag. Every year, there are approximately 50,000 new books that enter the marketplace in the United States. 50,000. Most of them, of course, are fiction, but you'd be amazed at how many of them come out on the subjects of money, finances, investing, etc. I mean, incredible books. Too many. So no one knows what to do. So most of us go from reading one book, Richest Man in Babylon. We pick up another book, Millionaire Next Door. We pick up another book, The Millionaire Mind. We pick up Susie Orman's book, Courage to be Rich. We pick up The Wealthy Barber. We pick up Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant. And I could go on and on and on and on and on with all the books that are out there in the marketplace that people have read and acquired. And yet if you asked someone, hey, tell me about this particular book. What do you think about that strategy? Oh, I love that book. Fantastic book. Really. What do you remember about it? What have you implemented? You begin to see the challenge? I'll give you an example. Am I the only person here that's heard of the book Think and Grow Rich? No. Okay, a couple of you? 4 or 5? 7? Maybe 10? Okay, a whole bunch? Okay. According to the story, Napoleon Hill went to work for a man named Andrew Carnegie. Andrew Carnegie, at his time, was the wealthiest man in the world. Back before the United States had invented an income tax, he was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Someone did the numbers one time and said if you equated the dollars, he would have been about 6 to 8 times wealthier than Bill Gates today. Now, I don't know if the math is accurate or not, but for his generation, he was a very wealthy man. He left us with Carnegie Hall in New York, the incredible Performing Arts Center. He started the library system throughout the United States. People have gone to school through Carnegie University, and on it goes, what he's done with his money. Because he had a very interesting 2-part goal. The first was to spend the first half of his life making all the money that he possibly could. But the second was an interesting part to that whole concept, was to spend the second half of his life giving all that money away, which is exactly what he did. Now, Carnegie commissioned this young reporter named Napoleon Hill to take what he had learned and what indeed other people had learned about success and comprise that into what Carnegie called a philosophy, to publish it and share it with the world. The original writings of that were called the Laws of Success. The Laws of Success were originally released in, I think, the early 20s. The Laws of Success were about what this man, Napoleon Hill, had uncovered studying about 100 of the wealthiest men in his generation. People like the Wrigleys of Wrigley chewing gum fame, the Rockefellers, the Vanderbilts, Henry Ford, Thomas Edison. The list goes on and on with the people that he had a chance to interview. Very interesting people. Here's what he found, and let me see if I can make my point. If you've read that book at least one time all the way through, please put your hands in the air. I'm not going to pick on anybody. Just stick them way up so people can see. If you've read the book at least one time all the way through. Okay. He spends 20 years of his life studying the 100 wealthiest people and finds out they only have 13 things in common. 13. If your hand was in the air, could you grab right now pencil and paper and write down those 13 things? And if the answer is probably not, then what I will tell you that I know about personal development, the disconnect for me, what I've observed around the world, is we're spending too little time on too much material, when the reverse should be the truth. We need to start spending more time on less material. If you learn 3 words of Japanese and you leave the language, and you go on to learn Russian, and you learn a handful of sentences in Russian, and you leave the language, and you go on to learn Portuguese, and you learn a handful of expressions in Portuguese, and you move on to Spanish, and you learn a handful there, of what benefit or good are you for anyone, anywhere in the world? I mean, I can say goodbye in about 25 different languages. How does that help me? Because in all those languages, they can always, all of them know how to say it in English. What's the point? We need to spend more time on less material. I'm not suggesting you go get Think and Grow Rich. I'm not going to suggest from this platform that you spend time studying that book. What I am going to suggest is that if you felt the need to go get that book, and if you actually were interested enough to read it all the way through, and you liked what you read, then you owe it to yourself to read it until you know those 13 points and are implementing those 13 points into your life. Let's move on to another book. I really want to make this point. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Carnegie. Not Andrew Carnegie, Dale Carnegie. Here's a guy who studies people, and I think 1934 comes out with this classic. How many of you have read that book at least one time through? Okay, more hands. Fantastic. He found there were only 6 things that we need to do to get people to know us, like us, and trust us. I've referred to this on conference calls and in my writings as the most powerful personal development book when it comes to prospecting within network marketing that's ever been written. Master those 6 things and implement them at every turn, and you'll find people they'll just warm up to you. Instantly know you, like you, and trust you. So if your hand is in the air and I handed out pencil and paper and said, there's only a half a dozen things, 6 is not a very big number, write down in order the half dozen things that Carnegie found through his studies that you need to do to create know me, like me, and trust me, those 6 things. How many of you feel you could just absolutely nail it? How many of you wanted to go get the book and maybe review it one more time? You get the idea. One last strategy. Money. You think you got it there? Little cheat sheet? Yeah, there's actually a section called 6 Ways to Make People Like You in that book. Very interesting. One last strategy. The Richest Man in Babylon. How many of you have ever read the book? Okay. How many of you know how many strategies there even are? There are 7. Of the 7 strategies, again, pencil and paper being handed out, you've read the book. How many of the 7 could you write down that you've immediately implemented? I was in a home in Bend, Oregon, a few years back, and the family that had invited me out to do an event there, and when it was all said and done, we went and kind of had a very private, quiet, contemplative conversation. He invited us over to his home. We sat down, and he said, you can probably tell by looking around, my wife and I are struggling economically. I mean, we put on a pretty good front, but we're struggling. And you could tell by his home, he was telling the truth. He was a man who was revered within his company. He was the leader in that particular community. Most people, I think, thought he was doing much better than he was. He was struggling. And he said, Michael, with all the books you've read, if there's only one book you could recommend that I go get and read that would help turn my finances around, what would it be? And I said to him, The Richest Man in Babylon. I'll remember the rest of my life what he said next. I've already read that book. What else do you recommend? I said it as tactfully as I could. I did ask permission earlier on to tell you the truth as I saw it. Here's what I said to that fine young man on that particular day. What else would I recommend you read? Here's what else I would recommend you read. I would recommend you read it again. That's what I would recommend, until it becomes a part of the very fabric of who you are. Most people that read that book recognize if they implemented those 7 strategies in about a half a dozen years or less, they would be wealthy. Most people who read that book get excited. But like I mentioned early on about the habit, most people who close the cover of that book go on to get Kiyosaki's book or whatever else is out there in the marketplace, and they go from one book to the next book, to the next book, to the next book, to the next book, and they have no idea, and their finances do not improve. It's one thing to make $100,000 a month in this business. It's another thing to make $100,000 a month and be poor. I know people that make over $100,000 a month, and I would classify these people as poor. You know why? They're 1, maybe 2 paychecks away. Company has a little hiccup, something goes wrong, little challenge like we've got going on in Japan, big challenge like in Japan. I mean, something that they couldn't have predicted happens to them, they're in serious trouble because they found a unique way to spend every single penny they have. They're living like on about $120,000 a month. They're only earning $100,000. You think, how could that be possible? The same way a person makes $25,000, $30,000 a year and lives on $15,000, $20,000 more. Used to be in America, it was easy. You know, the equity in the home would just rise, 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 rise until you maxed out every card you had. Then you just refinance everything and start over again. And we watched this cycle, did we not? Perpetuate and perpetuate and to perpetuate until all of a sudden the bank said, we're done. Then people went, but I'm not finished spending. Now what? Personal development. Here's the strategies I'm asking you to implement. Strategy number 1, read for 30 minutes every day. Pick a book by its title that would suggest it could help. Pick a book by its title that would suggest it could help. People say, what do you mean? I'm not advocating Dr. Phil's new book, but I'm trying to make a point. Dr. Phil wrote a book called Phenomenal Families. That's a book by its title that would suggest it could help if you were having a challenge within your family. Do you see what I'm saying? Okay, that's what I mean. Find a title. John Kalinch, before he passed, wrote a book called 17 Secrets of the Master Prospector. specifically for the network marketing industry. That's a book by its title that would suggest it could help. I wrote a little booklet called 7 Prospecting Secrets. That's a little booklet by its title would suggest it would help. Does that make sense? Just look for the titles that would suggest they could help. But when you find those classic gems, instead of finishing one and moving on to the next, and then finishing that and going on to the next, finishing that and going on to the next, where someone comes to you and says, what were the principles, what were the points, what did you implement? And you got no idea. Spend more time on less material. There's only about a half a dozen books I think you really need to take your business to over 7 figures per year. Over a half a dozen books. But those half a dozen books need to be read and reread and reread and reread and reread and reread until someone comes up to you and says, Think and Grow Rich, 13 points. You say you want them forward, backwards, you want them alphabetical, well, how do you want them? You know the material that well, you're going to be a rock star in this particular business. No kidding. Okay? Personal development. Read for 30 minutes every day. Point number 2, listen to something that's been recorded for at least 30 minutes to an hour every day. Let that material just pour over you. It's what we call environmental immersion. It's the way every person here learned their mother tongue. Clean slate at birth. If we'd moved you to China, you'd speak beautiful Chinese, wherever you ended up, with no accent, if we moved you at birth. If we move you at our age today, we can learn the language, no problem. But sometimes it's difficult to get all the words right. Sometimes people can tell we're a foreigner, unless we move there and immerse ourselves in the environment. Environmental immersion is huge. To the degree that you want to learn 2, 3, 4, 5 languages, let me give you the best I've got. It would serve you well if you had been raised in a family where they spoke 2, 3, 4, 5 languages, because you would speak all of them today fluently without ever having to have broken a sweat. Agreed? Anybody here know what I'm talking about, speaks more than one language? Parents spoke one, English, outside or inside, wherever it was, you grew up? And we have friends that are very good friends of ours that are back home, Japanese. Only Japanese in the home, only English outside the house. Kids can look at you and they can tell by how you look which language to address you in. It's really interesting. You want to freak them out, talk to them in Japanese. They're like, because they know it's wrong. Guy like me starts speaking Japanese to them, they know, the little kid knows, that's fundamentally something's wrong there, something's wrong. Interesting. Read 30 minutes every day, listen for 30 minutes every day. Number 4, take 4 classes every year. 1 class every quarter. If Brian Tracy comes through your community, go. If you're interested in Tony Robbins, you like what he has to teach, go. If you don't, look for someone else. Look for the people that can help you. One of the rock stars in your company comes through, go. Bring your whole team there. But look for the people that can help you grow your business. First of all, it's a great place to meet people. You go to those events because you bring together like-minded people. I'll tell you, if Brian Tracy ever comes to your community, you'll find some of the best prospects for your business inside that seminar than you will probably ever find anywhere else, because you've got individuals looking to find a way to do better in their lives. But 4 classes every year. Make sure at least 2 of those come from within your own company and 2 from outside. And it's the combination of that over time that will make all the difference. And then last but not least, in our little list of 7, use the products, set your goal, master the fundamentals, prospecting, presenting, and duplicating. Attend the events, get yourself a business workout partner, personal development being number 6. Number 7 is something that, again, we need to focus on. As leaders, it's easier. For the brand new person, they don't really understand the significance of this from the very beginning. But we need to commit to the process. And there was a phrase that we learned, we taught, it was effective. We would just tell the people who were serious. We would stop at 6 for the people who maybe weren't ready for this yet, because remember what I said earlier about age-appropriate conversation? Some people just aren't ready for number 7 yet. They will be over time. They're just not ready yet. But for those who are, and certainly you are among that group that are absolutely ready, the commitment is to be here, still actively involved a year from now. It will take the next 12 months for you to find the books. It'll take the next 12 months for you to attend the classes, to listen to the recordings repetitively until, like the songs on the radio, you've mastered the words by hearing the lyrics one more time. Best way to learn the song is not to go to Google, print off the words and get up early and stay up late. It's not the best way. If there was a $1 million prize for mastering a little 3-minute song, the person who probably would win that prize is someone who would download it or acquire it and would listen to that song virtually 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, until they had to stand before the judges and recite every word. And it's the repetition, 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 repetition that's going to make it stick in your consciousness. Playing in this game is a lot like playing the game of tennis. If someone is serving to you and you have to think about what you're going to do next, it's too late. You have to have the mental capacity of having the data gone in, gone in, gone in, gone in, gone in, so that you end up with, and this may be the final thing for your notes, what we call stimulus response. Stimulus response. They say this, I say that, which probably prompts them to say this, which means I'll say that. And then they'll say this, I'll say that. Then they'll ask for this, I'll give them that. And then in about an hour or 2 hours or a day, a week, a month, whatever it is, there'll be a new distributor, new associate, new consultant. There'll be a new individual successfully building their own business. These 7 strategies will take you from where you are to where you want to go, because this is the premise, the foundation for duplication. Duplication is using this as your guide to build your business. Now, before we get out of here, I do have one small request. There was an envelope passed out to everyone here that you received at lunch. I think it's kind of a purple envelope. And inside, if you could pull that out, there's an order form for some of my material. I'd like to review that with you in case any of you would like to get some of that while you're here. I know many of you already have because you picked it up when we were at the last conference. But look for the one that looks like this. And if you can't find it or don't have it, put your hand up. I've got some extras here, and we'll get these to you. Everybody have this in front of you? Okay. There's one there. One there, one there. Okay, one there. Maybe we can just get someone to go and help with the people who don't have those. Thank you very, very much. Let me make just a couple of suggestions, and then we're out of here. Little green book, upper left-hand corner, is called The Fifth Principle. It's the smallest book I think that's ever been written in network marketing history. You can read it in about 30 minutes. But it's not about reading it in 30 minutes. It's about reading it and rereading it and rereading it until you know what the 5 principles are. And when you understand conceptually why this has been put together this way, it'll just add to the foundation that you need to successfully build on the business you already have. Those principles are absolutely necessary to understand. Next to it is a book that I think some of you have seen. It's been marketed here. You've got a couple of vendors that are actually selling it that you might have heard of. I know a number of you came up and commented you've already read it, called Learning the Business One Story at a Time. If you're not familiar with it, it's just a collection of 24 stories that teach people the fundamentals of prospecting, presenting, duplication, leadership, money management, etc. What most people do with this book is they use it for training their teams, because they can take one story and develop a conference call around it or a little training around it, and they've got new material to share just to advance their team to the next level and beyond. The little purple square pack that says the word success across it, that's the Total Success Pack. There's 18 CDs contained within that package. The programs are listed in black below. 28 Days to Your New Future, Mastering the Fundamentals, The Secret to Developing Leaders, Your Prospecting Toolbox, The Simple Art of Duplication, and Thinking Your Way to Success. All of those programs are contained in the Total Success Pack. We've spent together now about 1 hour and probably 50 minutes. So what you have to decide is, was any of this valuable to you? And if it was valuable to you, would it benefit you to hear it again? To be able to remember so that you could repeat, so that you could utilize? Well, the snag is what I've shared with you is uniquely for this group today. It's not on any of this material. This material is for the brand new individual, because remember what I said? What works and what we teach are different. I only teach here what will duplicate. What someone can immediately say, I think I can do that, I think I have the time to do that, and I wouldn't mind, actually I would be comfortable doing that with my family, my friends, and my coworkers. That's a Total Success Pack. 18 hours of me. Building a better life. When I retired from building my business 7 years ago, it'll be 7 years in October, it absolutely amazed me when I started traveling around and doing these events, that the leaders that would bring me in, the conversations that we would have afterwards, those leaders in the quiet recesses of the late evening would start telling me what was really going on in their lives. Their cell phone never stopped ringing. Text messages never stopped coming. Their Facebook they couldn't even keep up with. The email would just be this perpetual stream of information. They couldn't get back to every person. Their family was suffering. Their health was not where it needed to be, and most of them were in a health company because they're like going 24/7. It was insanity. But after I heard those stories over and over and over and over again, I started asking myself, what was I fortunate enough to learn through my 20-plus years in actually building that these people hadn't learned yet? And I put that program together in Building a Better Life. This is about taking the areas of life that I think matter, the spiritual side, the family side, the financial side, the fitness side, the fun side, the social cultural side, the career side, putting it all together so that you are absolutely excited beyond belief about the direction that you're going. And the people you care about are excited too. When you've got your family on board, everything changes. When you've got your family supporting you, encouraging you, pushing you, prodding you, I'm telling you, it's a totally different world. When you know what to do with your money, when you know how to live your life. These are some extraordinary suggestions that have played out over the passage of time. That material there you can see, you have two choices. Let me be very clear. If you'd like to get this, fill it out, and please bring it to me. I'll just be right out here if you'd like to say hello, or you brought a camera, want a picture or something like that. If you brought one of the books and would like an autograph, I would be happy to do what is necessary. I'd love to get a chance to say hello to everybody. So if you'd like to bring it by, fantastic. But you have an option. We're in a very digital age now. This is all hard material, physical books and actual CDs. But what we're finding is a lot of people would prefer to have it in MP3. They'd prefer to have it in ebook format because they have those readers. So you have a choice. On this order form, when you fill it out, if you want the MP3s and the ebooks, just write that there and you'll save $37. So it's a total of, you'll save the money for all the packaging and shipping and everything like that. So your total would be just $200. And if you put a total of $200 on your form, I'm asking, I'm begging, I'm pleading, make your email as as neatly as you possibly can. If you have to do it all in upper cases, just so I know if it's an I, or a C or an E or something like that, because if we can't send the material to you, then it's going to be a snag. But print as neatly as you possibly can. If you want the actual material, fantastic. Come give these to me. We'll get them shipped off to you on Monday, and we can go to work together. If I had more time, I'd tell you stories. I'm just going to end with one. About 10 years ago, I was in Atlanta, Georgia. They sent a driver to pick me up. Nice young man. We got to talking. It was a long drive from the airport into the facility. I asked him what he was doing on Saturday. He told me he didn't have any plans. We talked about his future a bit. I suggested he come to the event. To my surprise, he showed up, sat in the back. He stayed through the whole event. This guy got pretty excited about what he heard. He sponsored into the business, got involved, got the material, and went to work. I worked with him for a couple of years until I retired. I got the nicest email from him a few years back. I've got to tell you, I've got 1,000 stories in my mind like Tyler. Here's what Tyler said. Michael, because of the CDs and the material, because of what I've been able to repetitiously go through, I became the youngest person in my company to break the $250,000 mark in 1 year. I'm now happily married. My wife and I have a beautiful home. We're beginning to raise a family. And that's a far cry different from when you met me and you remember I was living on my sister's couch. Tyler was a young man, but he had incredible potential. What Tyler needed was a vehicle, and he needed someone to teach him how to capitalize on that decision. And that's exactly what he had. He chose a great company. Now he had the material. He put those two together and was able to build an extraordinary life. So some of you are doing well. This will help you do even better. For some of you, you're not sure exactly what the next step that you need to take will be. You give me the permission to work with you. I promise you over time I'll teach you how you can design a life that is exciting, extraordinary, and fun. My wife and I have had some interesting privileges over our lifetime. We've raised a couple of children. I've got a son now who's almost 32 years of age. We have a daughter who's 29. We have two little grandchildren, little Eli who's 5 and little Jacob who's 2 years of age. My wife and I are celebrating our 33rd year together. So when I talk about, well, hold on. I'm running out of time. You can clap in a second. When I talk about putting together an extraordinary life, I mean putting together a life where you bring the people you care about along with you. And when you finally reach the destination that you set for yourself, you have what you wanted. You've got your health. You've got a sufficient amount of wealth to make your life work. You've got family and friends. You're connected spiritually to what's important to you. And so the reason I decided after I was invited, and again, thank you very much, to get on an airplane and come down here, is because what I have today is something I want for all of you to be able to have tomorrow. This is a great company. You have some extraordinary things going for you. If you had any idea where you were in the grand scheme of things, I don't think you'd sleep tonight. The snag is, you're probably all going to go rub something on your foot, just that'll be that. Maybe that's okay. But remember where you are. Remember the lives you can touch. Remember the people that you can affect. Remember how many need what you're offering. You are the messengers of hope in sometimes a hopeless world. So to the degree that you become better at what it is that you're doing, you can spread that message more effectively. You can touch many, many more lives. And as you do, I promise you, the reward will certainly be worth it. Thank you for the privilege and your attention. Enjoy the rest of your event.